Close your eyes and make yourself comfortable. Let your breathing slow and let the day's bright edges soften. I will tell you a story, not one you have heard before, but one that grows from the green roots of an old and gentle forest. It is a night story about a boy who walked between two wild worlds and the friends who walked with him. It begins on a warm evening when the Seeonee Hills lay soft and sleepy under a round, patient moon. The wolves had found a cool cave, and Father Wolf, waking from his long daytime rest, stretched his heavy paws one after the other until each joint sighed awake. Mother Wolf lay across 4 tumbling cubs, her nose heavy with sleep, and the moonlight poured like a quiet river into the cave's dark throat. The world outside the rock was a chorus of small things: the call of night birds, the hush of leaves, and the soft rustle of creatures that live by the hush of night. The sleep stuffiness eased from Father Wolf's eyes. He felt the stir that means the hunt is near again. His jaws opened with a slow, pleased yawn. He had been full and sated earlier, but there are times when a hunter's soul is not quiet until he moves. He would have leapt into the dark when a little figure slipped through the cave doorway and paused in the moon shadow, bushy tail flicking. A thin voice trembling the silence. It was the jackal Tabaqui, known as the dishlicker, a creature both despised and feared in the jungle, for he had the habit of mischief and of rattling human quarrels like a bell inside the quiet. And because sometimes madness touched him, and then he ran wild and bit at anything that moved. He crept to the back of the cave and found a dry bit of bone to feast on. And then, dry-voiced, he praised the wolf pack's little ones in a way meant to prick. Compliments are like sparks in the eyes of the young. Mother Wolf's fur pricked with attention. But the jackal had come bringing other words, dark and heavy with meaning. He told them that Shere Khan, the lame tiger who lived near the Waingunga River, had shifted his hunting ground and would be moving among the Seeonee Hills for a moon. The words dropped like warm stones. That tiger was a thing of teeth and caution, and his coming could unsettle every quiet breathing in the night. Father Wolf growled at the news. Wolves live by a law a way older than any single life that sets who may hunt where, and without warning, a creature like Shere Khan could tear the music out of the night and send all the smaller creatures to scatter and bolt. It would be costly. It might even mean hunger for families. At the word of Shere Khan came another sound, thin and high, a whine and a humming that rose and changed into the tiger's charge cry. The whole valley answered with the distant, angry snarl of a beast who had found nothing and would tell the world how hungry he was. But Mother Wolf, slow and steady, had read deeper. The whine had not been about bullocks or deer. The purr had folded into a sound that makes men in camp drop their heads in fear. It was the sound of man. When a tiger chooses man, the jungle knows its smallest whisper of trouble will be answered by white men with iron and fire. And then every life in the forest suffers. The law says it is wrong, except in the bitter, harsh lessons a man may teach his children in some strange tongue. Mother Wolf's voice was steady as water when she said it. She had been called Raksha, the demon, in the past because her courage cut like cold steel. Far below, a voice rose and fell, the same thin, mocking whine, and then the thunder growl of Shere Khan as he tumbled through the scrub. His feet burned and raw from a rash leap at a woodcutter's campfire. He had missed his prey and come away hurt and furious. The valley's dark turned into movement, and both wolves cocked ears. Into the mouth of the cave, big and square and shining like rich iron in the moonlight, thudded the tiger's head. He wanted what any fierce thing wants, the helpless smallness of a man-child. And there, right in the mouth of the cave, was the most wonderful thing the night could have offered, a naked brown baby, clinging by a low branch, laughing into the teeth of danger as though danger were a toy. The wolf who called himself father took him gently, so gently that his jaws might have closed like a trap, and yet not so much as scratched the child's smooth back and laid him among the cubs. There is a softness in the wild that can astonish a human heart. Mother Wolf bent close, and with a tenderness that was fierce as fire, let the child press into her warmth. The baby fit as though he belonged. Mother Wolf named him Mowgli, meaning the frog, and she loved him at once. Shere Khan's orange head crouched like a heavy moon outside the cave, roaring his claim. But Raksha, Mother Wolf, had already shown her teeth like moons and told him that this child was hers to keep. That roaring threat could have shifted the course of everything. The tiger had come for simple human blood, the taste and the terror of a man-child. He could not enter the narrow cave. He could only be thunderous outside, and he thundered. He told them he would take the child. Mother Wolf answered with such heat that Shere Khan backed out, growling promises of return, promises that the long future would hold their debt. The wolves called the law into being. Father Wolf said the child must be shown to the pack. The old law of the Council Rock, where Akela, the lone wolf, sat in aged strength to keep the tribe true. So the wolves went with the baby to the pack council at the Council Rock, a stone-ridged place where the moon's full face would watch the pack's business from above. Akela lay on his rock like a tired king, and one by one the wolves came, some to inspect the cubs, some to sniff for danger. The night was a small, breathless thing, a whisper of a storm. The tiger came and scolded and roared, but he was a stranger to the ways of the pack. He could not command its order from outside. You remember, perhaps, how a pack must be careful about blood and about the law, how a newborn must be honestly claimed and shown and spoken for by at least 2 members who are not the child's parents. Then Baloo, the big, sleepy, brown bear who taught the cubs the law of the jungle, things like how to respect another's hunting ground, how to speak to the bees, got up, and like warm, slow bread breaking, he spoke for the man-cub. Bagheera, the black panther, with his gliding, silken courage, rose as well and offered to buy the child's place among the wolves on the lawful price of a bull's life. The pack thought it reasonable, and so Mowgli, the little naked frog, became one of the Seeonee Wolf Pack by Akela's nod and the bargain laid before them. He had the promise of Baloo and the cunning of Bagheera behind him. Skip now, as a knight does, over 10 or 11 years, the kind of years that make a boy's legs long and teach him to move like breath. Mowgli grew among the wolves. Sometimes he ran with the cubs and sang their simple hunting verses. Sometimes he went with Bagheera into the dark heart of the forest and learned to climb and to balance his weight as the panther did. Sometimes he lay with Baloo and learned the law, the names for the things that live upon 4 feet, that fly with wings, or swim in the slow pools. The law is a map that keeps the jungle from eating itself. Mowgli learned to listen to every rustle, every bird sound, every splash. He learned many things that a child of men would not need. He learned the precise way to say the stranger's hunting call, an old phrase that means, translated, "Give me leave to hunt here, because I am hungry." Each line of the law had a reason. The jungle teaches by pattern. The wild bees require a polite greeting when you come under their trees. The snake people must be warned before you splash into their pools. The water snake's hiss and the owl's thread of song all folded into Mowgli's day. A mosaic of small, exact signs. There were things Mowgli did not forget. Mother Wolf had told him softly of Shere Khan's thirst for him, and Bagheera had reminded him of the tiger's hatred like a small, stinging beetle. But Mowgli was a child, he laughed, and he loved to take thorns out of the paths of his wolf brothers. He thought himself one of the pack, yet Bagheera, with the secret softness a panther can hide, carried a whisper of his own. He had been born in a king's palace, and once knew men in cages. When the panther took the pledge at the council rock, the bull that bought Mowgli's place, he did so with the memory of men in his blood. One day Bagheera, resting in a warm hollow, told Mowgli more. He patted the fur at the boy's small shoulders and showed him a scar, a little bald place under his jaw. "I was once kept by men in a city cage," Bagheera said, and he told how he had broken his iron lock and fled until the jungle made him whole with moonlight and hunger and cunning. And because he had lived among men, Bagheera said it was his duty to remind Mowgli, little brother, that when the time came, the world of men would call him home again. Mowgli's world bristled with new meaning in those days. He could look another wolf straight in the eye, a strange power that unnerved many of them. And he could bend an arm around Bagheera's glossy neck and sleep there in the bright noon sun like a slumbering kitten. Yet Bagheera warned that the day might come when Akela would fail, when the old law-themed strength would wane, and when Shere Khan would whisper fast tales into the ears of the young wolves. So Bagheera taught Mowgli another craft, one not written in the law of the jungle. He told the boy to go to the men's huts and look upon the little pot of smoldering coal, the red flower fire. He told him to hold the pots in his hands and learn to make the flame live on a twig. "Keep the red flower," Bagheera said. "It will be a friend to you when some other friends may not be." So the man-child learned the name of fire, how to tilt a little coal with his breath, how to feed the hungry light with dry twigs. Again and again he practiced, sometimes with the laughter of Tabaqui, the jackal in the night, sometimes with the proud purr of Bagheera above him. The day he learned the red flower, he felt a hum in him like a new strength, a small, bright power that no animal could take from him. It would sometimes be a shelter, and sometimes a terrible, fierce weapon. It would be the mark that separates tribes. Once, when the council rock rang with a shouting that would have torn his heart out, Mowgli flung a blazing stick into the center and held it aloft. The pack scattered, some in fear, some in awe. He declared himself neither wolf nor man in that instant, but something that belonged between worlds, the boy who could burn. The pack could not wholly accept him. Many wolves were proud and resentful. Shere Khan would not rest. He made the night crackle with the old tiger's scorn. Yet in the end, Mowgli held his head high and chose his path. He lay his hands on the burning log and promised the pack he would not betray them. He would go to the men, he said. He would stand on two worlds' thresholds and learn both. He would come back, he promised, when a man could stand among wolves and still bring honor. Even so, the jungle keeps its soft, slow law like a ceaseless tide, and a boy who has tasted the red flower carries its warm flicker into the places that men do not imagine. Time slid and rivered on. Mowgli grew. He was bold and fierce and quick of hand. He learned to climb trees, to pluck honey as Baloo had taught him to talk politely to the bees, to feel for rotten branches with the pads of his feet. Bagheera taught him those quieter strengths, the ways of the shadows. Baloo, with old bear affection, bruised him with love and repeated the law till the words drummed in Mowgli's head like the steady stroke of an oar. There were other sounds in the jungle as the years folded. The Bandarlog, the monkey people, chattered and jabbered in the upper boughs. They sang nonsense songs and called to each other with glee. They had no law, no memory of right and wrong stitched like a cloth across days. For all their leaping and bright eyes, the monkeys were often careless and would pull off a thing's tail for a laugh. Bagheera warned against them. He told Mowgli, who had always loved climbing, that monkeys kept no rules and would play at cruel things if they had the chance. "They are forbidden," Baloo said once, as he cuffed the man-cub. For we of the jungle have no dealings with them, but children are children, and Mowgli was no exception. He played among the monkeys one day when Baloo's scolding had lasted too long. Their hands pulled at him with no malice in their faces. They treated him as if he were a trick or a toy. The Bandarlog were quick to invent they would make Mowgli their king, their leader. A great idea leaped among them like a small, bright spark. A man-child could teach them to weave sticks and to make huts, and then they would be mighty people indeed. They stole him away on a high highway in the trees, over branches, through long green aisles, 20 feet at a swinging bound, from a top where the world flattened and far away became like a map. Ran the kite watched with quick, sharp eyes, and dropped down a few 100 yards to spy and see the foolish, hollering thing they had caught. He wheeled and whistled warning to Baloo and Bagheera. The bear and the panther rushed, but the Bandarlog, many and shoving and shrill, took Mowgli up into their cold lairs, an empty old city of ruins that they had claimed as their own. The city was a hush and a ruin, a place of fallen roofs and hollow windows where life had once been. The Bandars set Mowgli on a terrace and made speeches to themselves. "We are the most wonderful people in all the jungle," they chanted, telling and retelling their own greatness till the words turned hollow and lost their edge. The child listened to their boasting and obeyed the curious, childish logic of play. He tried to hum the way the monkeys hummed. When his mouth fell open wide with hunger, they sought fruit and then squabbled, and a shower of small things fell around them as a rain of gossip. As dawn neared, Mowgli's soft heart grew heavy with the emptiness of these new voices. Bagheera and Baloo and Kaa the great rock snake had come at last. Kaa's presence was the shadow of long ages. His slow, hungry mind and his strength weighted and curled like a heavy rope. He could do wonders that the other people couldn't imagine. In the maze of the cold lairs, he slipped and moved and baffled the Bandarlog, and in the end, he made the unwisely numerous monkeys hush with a single slow hissing word. It was the truth that worms through the heart of the jungle. A few degrees of dread can often clear the loudest crowd. Mowgli was drawn out, rescued by the great coils, and the crack of thunder when Kaa broke down the latticed marble, and the panther drew the boy from the tank side where the monkeys whirled and shrieked. Mowgli, small and brave, folded his arms around Baloo and Bagheera. He thanked the snake and the panther, and Bagheera, solemn, licked the boy's hair and said gently that now he had truly become a man's cub, something both to love and to be careful of. The jungle had given him shelter and lessons, and when he left the cold lairs, he returned to the Seeonee hills with the deep quiet of a traveler who has come home. But it is a bittersweet homecoming. His heart was a knot of two calls: the call of the wolf pack and the human voice with its bright and dangerous cities. We follow Mowgli a little farther now. He walked into the villagers' lands, into small huts smelling of smoke and milk and dry corn. A woman who loved him, Mesua, the wife of a farmer, took him in, seeing in him perhaps the ghost of a lost child. She made him a simple home and said, gently, and in that village's ordered fashion, that he might stay. Mowgli watched the human ways. He learned words beside the fire, the small human tricks of money and bargaining, and the shame of being thought a thing apart. The children were cruel, and the grown people were fearful. He had small indignities to face, to learn clothes, to learn fire in the pots of a domestic life. He learned the difference of a man's world, a net of small rules, a delicate architecture of shame, and of acceptance that can stitch people into a place. And yet the jungle's pulse beat under his feet. He tended buffaloes in the high grazelands he learned to herd, and to feel the slow movement of the herds. He was loved by some, but he was not accepted entirely. Buldeo, the hunter of the village, told tall tales by the street light and called Mowgli a sorcerer. The village, frightened of the unknown, let its fear turn from curiosity to ill-tempered words. One day, walking with his herd, Mowgli found Gray Brother waiting, for in the wide world wolves watch and know. Shere Khan, the lame tiger, had slunk back into the hills and waited as a coiled thing, angry that he had never been killed. Mowgli looked at the tiger's tracks and planned. He knew how a tiger had been burned once. He knew how a buffalo herd could be harnessed like thunder. He knew what the law and the cunning together could make. Sent the herds in a great arc, drove the cattle toward the ravine. He called on Akela and the wolves. Where the ravine cut like a broken tooth across the plain, they made a trap. Bulls in a great, rolling charge, once started, would be unstoppable. They circled, the four-footed thunder came down the slope, and Shere Khan, tempted from his lair by hunger, and too near the water, turned to meet what he had always feared, a flood of horns and hooves. The buffaloes carried him like a little twig in the current. The plains answered with the sound of scattered birds. And at last, the quiet hush that means a hill is empty. Mowgli's hands worked with the skill of someone who knows how a beast's skin fits. The hide, bright and striped as a sunset thrown across the rock, was stripped and pegged upon the council rock where Akela had once sat, and he danced upon it, time quivering in his heels and the song of the jungle in his voice. The villagers had tried to stone him, calling him witch and wolf, but he came back at night and spread Shere Khan's hide on the great rock. He had kept his promise. He had the pride of both a man and a wolf in one breath. Sometimes, when a great night draped the hills in velvet, and your own feet have lost their throb, it is good to hear the tale of other things as they go on. Far away, in other seas and under other moons, there are stories that move like long rivers of white seals who find islands where men do not go, and of an old elephant who carries his driver's son through a night of magic when the elephants dance alone. Each of these tales sings in a different key, but they all hum the same truth. The world is wide, and it keeps its own ways. If you will let your breath come slower still, imagine Mowgli lying on his back one night on the ground where the grass was warm from the day. Bagheera and Baloo and the wolves sat in their circles, and the black sky pinpricked the air like scattered salt. Mowgli thought of those who had been kind to him, those who had taught him the law, and those who had beaten him into remembering it. He thought of how he had once been a naked, laughing child who came to a cave by accident, and how that same child had burned a stick to hold himself safe in the Council Rock. He thought of Mother Wolf's warm coat and the feel of Bagheera's velvet back at his cheek. When sleep began to creep up the world like a gray sea, he felt his heart be full. There is a sadness in leaving a place that loved you in its only way, to take bone and scent and the gnaw of life. He remembered a name he had once been given in a human hand, Nathu. The thought of that other life was far, and like a song a traveler might someday sing. He wrapped himself in the memory of 2 lives and let the quiet wash over him. The gentle lesson of the night, the one we carry under our breath when we slip into sleep, is this: keep the law where it helps you. Love the people who love you the truest way they can. Remember that being of 2 worlds can be a rich, bittersweet thing. A boy like Mowgli could stand in the doorway between them and choose what to take. He chose to carry fire and to keep the memory of his forest, to grow with the lessons of both sides, and to never forget those who taught him to read the smallest signals: a throat that gurgles with warning, a leaf that trembles with the passing of wings. In that balance of heart and habit, he found his steady place. And now, let your breathing slide a little slower still. Let the day and its quick edges soften like dry leaves in rain. The story you have just heard, the story of a man-child who learned the law of the jungle, who kept the red flower, who made friends with Baloo and Bagheera, and who walked between the village and the wild, will rest beside you like a small, warm stone under a pillow. Perhaps tonight, as your breath finds the gentle tide between ribs and sleep, you will visit a familiar cave where moonlight pours like a steady river. You will hear, at the edge of the dark, a soft, slow murmur of the pack's law. The wolves keep the night with no fuss. They have little need of our loud thoughts. They do what must be done and sleep when it is time. Let your breaths come 2 or 3 slow and full now, each one deeper and steadier than the last. As you listen, see the moonlight scatter upon a child's hair, and the warm glint of panther fur, and the soft, slow rocking of Baloo's great belly. Feel how safe a world can be when everything knows its place. One day you will wake, and the day will be bright with the things you have planned. But for now, rest. Imagine Mowgli curled among the cubs, Mother Wolf's heavy breath upon his cheek. Imagine Bagheera stretched like a black shadow in the branches, and Baloo crooning lessons like old, slow music as he sleeps. This is the hush that rests in the story after the end, the place where a child of two worlds can hold both and keep them gentle. Allow the hush to gather, a soft, slow rapping of wind and leaf, of low tongues calling across dark valleys, and the far-off, sleepy splash of a river. Let your eyelids close and become like two small caves for dreams to take shelter in. You have walked, for a while, in the Seeonee Hills with a boy who chose both his houses. You may keep this story in your pocket as you drift now, like a little stone that knows the warmth of two palms. Sleep quietly, and when you wake, remember only the pleasant things, the warmth of the cave, the kindness of Raksha's voice, the slow patience of Baloo, and the silken secret strength of Bagheera. The jungle keeps to its rhythms, and so will you. Rest. The night is long, and the world, for now, will keep its own watch. Good night.